Welcome to the Bakersfield City Council meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by the local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 10 a.m., and the following Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can download the agenda for this meeting at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over this evening's meeting, the Honorable Mayor Karen K. Go.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to call to order the 5:15 regular City Council meeting of January 24th, 2024. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go.
Here.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilmember Arias.
Here.
Councilmember Weir. Councilmember Smith.
I'm here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Here.
Councilmember Gray.
Here.
And Councilmember Core.
Here.
Thank you. Tonight we have the pleasure of having Pastor Tim Grays, who is the senior pastor of Pleasant View Missionary Baptist Church, to offer the invocation. And then following the invocation, our North High School FFA team will lead us in the pledge. This team has done wonderful things here. They were the Kern Inyo sectional speaking competition winners, and they will introduce themselves after this. Top 5 in the Spanish Creed speaking and job interview topics. They qualified for the regional event, which is going to be held in March, and we're just so proud of you. Welcome to all of you. Would you please stand now?
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come together thanking you again for today, for this council meeting. We ask, Father God, that you would lead us and guide us, Father God, and allow your spirit to be here with us, Father God, to be on one accord. We ask that you bless each and every one of us who are here today, Father God, that your ways will be manifested here today, Father God, and your will. We thank you for this opportunity. In Jesus' name we pray. Thank you, Lord. Amen.
Please join us in a salute to our flag. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. And North High Star, would you stay up there? Introduce yourself and your advisor.
I'm Hayden Clark from North FFA Chapter. I am Chapter Secretary. I'm Abigail Pryor from North FFA, and I'm Chapter Treasurer.
I'm the Mari Zuniga from North FFA, and I'm Chapter Reporter.
And today we are here with Ms. Robles, a staff member at North High.
Well, let's give it up. Congratulations on your achievement.
Thank you.
And I look forward, when you win the next competition, to come back here when you go on to the next level. Thank you so much, Pastor Grace. Thank you so much. It was great to hear your sermon at the Martin Luther King service after the march, and thank you for the inspiration that you shared there. You're welcome to stay for the meeting, or if you need to take care of other things, this would be the time to leave. So thank you, Pastor. Here are a few guidelines to help our meeting run smoothly. We request that you turn off your phones. Please be courteous in the use of cameras and videos. For safety reasons and as a courtesy to others, no signs are allowed in the council chambers or in the lobby. Applause is allowed during the presentations portion of the meeting, but not during other portions of the meeting. Everyone in attendance is expected to adhere to the rules of decorum established by resolution of the City Council. Failure to abide by the city's rules of decorum, including any disruptive behavior that interferes with our ability to have an orderly and efficient meeting or prevents the City Council from conducting the business of the city. Behavior that disrupts the meeting includes repetitive statements, going off topic, shouting, outbursts from the audience, and surpassing the 2-minute time limit. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Presentations.
We've had a special addition to the agenda because we're about to experience a milestone celebration. And I'm going to ask former Congressman Bill Thomas to join me here. And I think something just fell over. Did it? Right here. I am so pleased that we're about to celebrate something that our congressman is going to talk about, but it takes vision to make things happen, and then it also takes a team to execute that vision. And so tonight, on behalf of the team that created the Thomas Roads Improvement Program, Caltrans, County of Kern, Kern Council of Governments, Parsons, and the City of Bakersfield, and under the leadership of Bill Thomas and the federal delegation, it's my honor to be able to present this certificate of recognition presented to the Thomas Roads Improvement Program in appreciation of the Thomas Roads Improvement Program and its vision for a comprehensive transportation system through Bakersfield, in recognition of the leadership of former Congressman William Thomas in securing the largest federal infusion of funding the region has ever seen. Or ever will. Okay. Hopefully it's not prophetic. But anyway, definitely has ever seen, and in recognition of the completion of the Centennial Corridor project as a transformational milestone for our community. It's just my honor to be able to present this to you on behalf of that team, and you are welcome to take the podium. And I think he said 3 hours he was asking for permission. Not quite?
No, not quite. I am going to violate that 2-minute rule, and I hope I don't violate too many others. Sharon and I were right here in 2006. I was still in Congress, but I was so excited about carrying the message of what the Transportation Act of 2005 was going to do for us, because I sat there for 27 years without a gavel and with a gavel, and I was never able to put us in a position of ridding us of having a state highway dead end into another state highway. It was 10 years, it was 20 years, it was 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and I had 1 year to figure out how to not go home empty-handed. Well, you just heard this structure, which was in the bill, which said if we could take all of the local governmental entities that had to do in some way with highways, we could walk away with almost $750 million. And so that motivation got me going to make sure that when I came here in 2006, I said, we have the money to get rid of the blockage of 58 into 99. And my commitment to the people who allowed us to do it, the members, House and Senate in the conference committee, was the promise that we would make it so that you could get on interstate and you could go to I-5 without ever stopping on regular streets. Well, we obviously violated that in 10 different ways. But today, with the team that we have now, and she mentioned Caltrans, Diana Gomez has been very, very helpful in Region 6. She mentioned the Kern Council of Government, and one of my closest colleagues for years has been Aaron Hakimi. And he continues to be one of the best, dare I say, weapons. He was in the Army, in terms of making sure we get our fair share. So we're close enough that if you pass the change orders we're going to be able to get clearance from Caltrans to cut a ribbon. And it's going to be at 11 o'clock on the 9th of February, after a week with no rain. And I want you all come and realize, although everybody thinks it took a really long time, that it was 3 times longer getting there than it was put up. So I'm done.
Thank you so much for...
Well, but I remember. No. I always have one more thing.
You always have
but
one more thing.
The answer is
Here,
no.
let's take, do you want to take a photo on behalf of
A
on your
photo?
team?
Okay, there are rules on photos.
Yes, there is. Well, I'll talk to your agent.
Not my age, it's yours.
Thank you, Congressman. And Sharon, thank you so much for being here. It takes a team. All right.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Congressman Bill Thomas.
Thank you, Congressman Bill Thomas. Thank you for your advocacy.
Next item, please.
Public statements.
Thank you. In keeping with Council's resolution, the public statements portion is now divided into 2 periods. There's a period for items listed on the meeting agenda and items not on the meeting agenda. Statements for items listed on tonight's agenda are given a 2-minute time limit, 20 minutes total per agenda item. The consent calendar as a whole constitutes 1 agenda item. Statements regarding items not listed on the agenda are given a 2-minute time limit, 20 minutes total. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, please give them to the clerk, who will give copies to the council. If you're here to make a public statement, please fill out a public speaker card and give your completed card to the city clerk. We ask that you mark whether you're here to speak on an item listed on the agenda or on a matter not on the agenda. Speakers who do not identify a specific agenda item will be presumed speakers for the non-agenda portion of the meeting. Those speakers will be called during that non-agenda portion. If you're here on consent calendar hearing items 8A through 8C, now is not the time to speak. You'll be given an opportunity to speak when those items are called later in the meeting. We're very interested and concerned with your issues. However, due to the public notice requirement of the Brown Act, Council can't take action when an item isn't on the agenda. The Council can, however, refer your matter to committee or request that staff contact you. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers regarding items listed on tonight's agenda?
Mayor Go, we've received 1 speaker card regarding an item listed on tonight's agenda from Kiyoshi Tomono regarding item 7D3.
Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor and our City Council. I stand here before you today. My name is Kiyoshi Tomono, as they announced, the Executive Director of the Blue Zones Project here in Bakersfield. For those who have not been fully aware of the work that we've been doing, Blue Zones is a community well-being initiative here in Bakersfield with the goal of making the healthy choice the easy choice, with the idea of making it reachable by everybody in our community. We're based on work that was inspired by a National Geographic article many, many years ago on the original Blue Zones. And our National Geographic explorer, Dan Buettner, looked at the area where people are living well and thriving, living up to 100 years or plus. And he looked at these areas like Nicoya, Costa Rica, and Okinawa, Japan, and the common threads that he found there was that the environment is what set these folks up for success. It wasn't forcing people to run marathons or eat specific diets, but just doing certain simple things allowed them to live longer and to thrive. And so we have a commitment to do that here in Bakersfield as well. The Blue Zones Project supports the funding opportunities that the city is pursuing under the EPA CPRG grant. This grant opens avenues for vital infrastructure projects throughout our community, including the enhancement of parks, public spaces, the improvement of bicycle and pedestrian safety, and also the augmentation of tree canopies, the cover. We know that actually there's studies that have shown that tree canopy and color, when you look at above from a satellite picture, shows areas that are thriving and doing well. The shade provides just quite simply a place for people to walk in a nice area. And all these projects align with the overarching goal that the Blue Zones Project has of creating an environment where residents can thrive. And so we just would like to come before you, the members of the City Council and the Mayor, to support your pursuit of this grant. And we'd like to thank you for this time and submit a letter that we were not able to submit within the deadline earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tomato. Madam City Clerk, next item, please. Non-agenda public statements.
Mayor Go, we've received 6 public speaker cards for items not on tonight's agenda. The first public speaker is Chrissy Quintanilla.
And then would you just announce the next one just so they can be prepared, please?
Lorena Salinas.
Can we have the first speaker come up, please? Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Chrissy Quintanilla, and I come to you. I have an MDiv. I'm a minister. I've, studied in seminary, and I'm a member here of Bakersfield, a concerned citizen. I want to bring to your attention, I myself went on a trip to the Holy Lands, and what I saw was not what I expected. I expected to have a trip that was learning about, walking the footsteps of Jesus, and instead I found gross human rights violations that concern me deeply, that continue to this day. So I want to read some of my concerns and some numbers as of today in Gaza. 30,000 Palestinians are dead. 12,000 children are dead. 109 journalists are dead. 1.9 million people are displaced. Of the 600,000 people facing starvation globally, 95% live in Gaza. These are the latest figures reported by the Euromed Human Rights Monitor and Food Security Phase Classification IPC. Palestinians in Gaza are living through a genocide as Israel bombs, starves, and displaces people. Hospitals, schools, refugee camps have been decimated with our tax dollars. In our community, mothers, I have listened to stories in our communities. I have seen the weeping of Palestinian mothers and fathers who are weeping because of the bloodshed in their homeland, the massacre of their family members. And as a Christian woman, there is nothing holy about genocide. I ask you, as a city council, to pass a ceasefire now initiative. We need a ceasefire now. This is the only way to end this humanitarian crisis.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Ms. Salinas.
Lorena Salinas, followed by Gabrielle Mota.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Lorena Salinas, and I'm here to demand that our city council pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire to the genocide being orchestrated by the IDF against the Palestinian people using our American tax dollars. The Israeli politicians and soldiers are even confessing their crimes proudly in interviews and self-recorded videos, making their goal of eradicating all Palestinians from their homelands transparently clear. Over the last 110 days, there have been 30,000 civilians, men, women, and children that have been murdered in constant air raids, sniper attacks, and ground raids. Those lucky enough to survive these attacks are facing forced starvation, lack of basic necessities like shelter, electricity, clean bathrooms, and medical supplies. Children are freezing to death. Mothers are having C-sections and being cut open in the dark with no anesthesia. Doctors are performing surgeries without even being able to have clean water to wash their hands. Babies are having their brains blown out of their skulls before they've even had a chance to finish developing. And all this is being funded with our tax dollars that we're being told is not enough to feed our hungry or pay our teachers fairly. Other California cities, including San Francisco, Oakland, and Richmond, have already passed resolutions standing with their communities and calling for a ceasefire. So I ask you, the Bakersfield City Council, what is your hesitation? How many more innocent people have to be slaughtered for you to tap into your humanity and say enough is enough? If we, as citizens of Bakersfield, can't trust you to stand up against a genocide that's being live streamed in front of our very eyes, then how can we possibly be trusting you to stand up for us with injustices throughout our own communities? Thank you for your time, and free Palestine.
Thank you, Ms. Salinas. Next speaker, please.
Gabriela Mota, followed by Omar, followed by Valerie Ugalde.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Mayor Go. My name is Gabriela Lynn Mota. My mother's name is Sharon Lynn Music, and she really wished that she could be here, but she's struggling financially. Her mother's name is Griselda, and I think that I feel really confident that that she would echo my words. I'm here to also echo my community members and call on each of you, especially the females here, or the feminine in each of you here. You know, growing up in this town, I remember playing the game of life and like thinking about the police officers and the city council members and how, you know, it all works. And I really want to ask you to use your power to call and to protect people and not profit. I really want you all to be the example for the little children that I take care of as a nanny in this community, and for the babies that I help to be born as a doula in this community. Last couple of months, it's all a blur. The last 10 days or so, I was lucky enough to be present for a birth, and I couldn't help but try the challenge, the job of, you know, juxtaposing the babies that are losing their life and the mothers who don't have access to doulas or anesthesia or anything at all. And I find it really difficult. And I would just like for some of the people that have the power to echo some of those sentiments, to use the platform and the voices you have so that the people and the little people in this community know what that sounds like and what it looks like. Please stop sending money and weapons to Israel. Please acknowledge the genocide. Please just use your voice in the positions that you hold. Every 4 minutes, Israel is killing a Palestinian. The daily death toll is over 250, which is larger than any other major conflict recently. I myself am also a combat veteran, so I've been to combat. A lot of my friends have been to combat and seen the reality. This is not a war. Please use your voice to call for a ceasefire resolution like the other communities around us and other city council members around us have done. I'm complete.
Thank you, Ms. Moto. Next speaker, please.
Omar, followed by Valerie Ugalde, followed by Martin Higuera.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself. You might want to raise the mic a little. Please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Cool. Hello, City Council. Good evening. My name is Omar Samara. I'm a resident in Ward 3 here. On October 7th, the world changed. The world changed for all of us. I think that much is crystal clear to everyone. And following October 7th, we have seen bloodshed, bombs, destruction, death, and pain, the likes of which this world has never seen captured on camera before. And there is a question for all of us, wherever we are in the world: how are we going to respond to this pain, to this tragedy? And some of us can do some things like show up to the city council meetings, and some of us are the city councilors. And I'm asking you, as our city council, on behalf of Bakersfield, to be leaders in this moment. Very clearly, the plan to destroy Hamas and capture the hostages has not succeeded. And a new approach, a peaceful approach, is necessary to ensure a safe, secure future for everyone. The only way we're going to truly achieve peace is to be bold and call for peace. So I'm asking you, Bakersfield City Council, to please create a ceasefire resolution to call for peace in Palestine and Israel, and to defend the rights of the people, those who have been violated, and promote a peaceful future. Ceasefire now. Free Palestine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Omar. Next speaker, please. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Mayor and council members, my name is Valerio Galde, and I'm here in support of a ceasefire resolution for Palestine. I want to tell you now that there is no good excuse you can give me as to why you won't pass a ceasefire resolution. I will not fall for the narrative that this started on October 7th, when we have mountains of evidence showing that this occupation started over 75 years ago. I will not fall for the narrative that October 7th justifies the over 25,000 civilian deaths we have seen in Palestine. I will not fall for the narrative that our movement is anti-Semitic when we have Jewish-led groups fighting alongside us for the same cause, and when prior to the colonization of Palestine, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim communities were free to live together in harmony. I will not fall for the narrative that Palestine brought this upon themselves by refusing a two-state solution, because it was never a land without a people for a people without a land to begin with. I will not fall for the narrative that Israel simply wants their hostages back, seeing as how only 2 days ago, Netanyahu declined the return of all hostages in exchange for a permanent ceasefire. I will not fall for the narrative that the death toll is Hamas's fault for hiding under hospitals. There is little evidence to back this claim, and it is still a war crime to bomb hospitals. Yet we've watched Gaza go from 36 fully functioning hospitals to only 15 partially functioning hospitals meant to aid over 2 million people. While celebrities are traveling to Israel and posting vacation photos, and while we've sent Israel hundreds of billions in military aid, children in Gaza get their limbs amputated with no anesthesia. Expectant mothers have seen a 300% increase in miscarriages and are having C-sections without anesthesia. Men have to dig through the rubble of their homes with their bare hands in hopes of finding their loved ones alive. Girls are cutting out pieces of their tent, the only shelter they have left, to use as sanitary pads and getting toxic shock syndrome as a result. And journalists have to look into the face of death with camera lenses just to prove how inhumanely they are being treated. Despite any other excuses you may have, the people of Palestine should not have to fit your idea of a perfect victim for you to recognize colonialism. This is not a war. This is the genocide of the people of Palestine, and our country is funding it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ugalde. Next speaker, please.
Martin Higuera, followed by Leslie M.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Martin Higuera. I'm a concerned community member. A lot of us in this community and around the country have been following the case that's gotten a lot of attention. This week on Friday, the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, will likely find a plausible case of genocide that the Israeli occupation forces have been escalating ever since October 7th of 2023 with relentless terroristic bombing campaigns targeting hospitals, clinics, elementary schools, universities, mosques, churches, and savagely flattening entire neighborhoods, all with bombs mostly supplied by our tax dollars. So to be clear, every person who pays taxes in this country has your money going to terrorize and displace millions of Palestinians from their homes. The occupation forces have also imposed a total blockade against most food, water, fuel, medications, and other critically low amounts of important resources needed for people to live in Gaza from entering Gaza. Projections are showing that because of this, soon more Palestinians will die from starvation. rather than the 109-day terrorist bombing campaign that has already resulted in the deaths of more than 30,000 Palestinians and well over 11,000 of these being children. Disgustingly, some of you on this council have even heartlessly gone as far to express support for the Israeli occupation forces bombing and starving these children in front of us all on a daily basis. But this city council still has the chance to condemn this pure evil and stand with the Palestinian community in Bakersfield and across the world by listening to them here and finally take some of the first steps to begin the process of passing a permanent ceasefire resolution that the community has been asking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Higuera. Next speaker, please. Welcome. Please
Hello.
introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening. My name is Leslie Moreno. I'm a resident of Bakersfield. I'm currently under Patty Gray's Ward 6 ward in this community. Just like my other community members have stated, it is time for the City Council to call for a ceasefire and support the Palestinian community here in Bakersfield. We have seen the atrocities on the news time and time again. This has not started just in October. It has been an ongoing issue. And the U.S. continues to send money to the IDF to terrorize and continue to commit genocide atrocities toward the Palestinian people. So it's time for each and every single council member for the city manager and for the city attorneys to call for a ceasefire as well. So I implore each and one of you as our representative electives to call for a ceasefire and to continue to support the Palestinian people here in Bakersfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moreno. Madam City Clerk, does that conclude our public speakers? Thank you. Next item, please.
Mayor, I had a request to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Kaur.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing that.
Am I good to speak? Okay. One, I wanted to thank everyone for coming out today and speaking and using the power of your voice to address this public forum, which is your forum. This is your mic. This is your stage. This is absolutely your podium as well. I can't speak for anybody else, but I can speak for myself in saying that, you know, I belong to a community that knows terrorism firsthand, experiences it. Someone who was born and raised in the United States, but you know, in a post 9/11 era, a community. I belong to a community that has experienced Islamophobia firsthand, continues to, even to this day, and I stand in solidarity with all who experience any type of hate, and am someone who has grown up being bullied in schools for simply my name. And as hate crimes and hate speech rises, so do the hate crimes against my own community. So I can recognize and see terrorism no matter which corner of the world it's happening. And it's so hard to sit and watch as the world watches silently as a genocide unfolds against Palestinians. And to reiterate words I've already shared before, I stand with our Palestinian community here in Bakersfield. I echo your sentiments that you shared today. I condemn the slaughtering that's happening to children and babies and people and men who wear the same turban that my grandfather wears, and the men holding and mourning, holding their dead grandchildren in their arms, and stand, and as we watch on our cell phones, those folks look like me, and they look like my grandparents and parents. And I know well and see what's happening and unfolding, and it is undeniable that we are watching a genocide unfold And it is undeniable that it does not affect our everyday lives. It is. We're all connected, and power is much larger than myself, and that of my seat and of my office make decisions across the world that affect us. In my community, we still have security guards to this day stand outside of our gurdwaras, our Sikh places of worship here in Bakersfield, because we've been targeted in our places of worship. We've been slaughtered in our gurdwaras here on this land that I was born into. So I understand terrorism deeply and very personally. And every single Sunday when I go to my place of worship, I see that security guard standing there in case something were to happen because someone sees me as a foreigner in the place that I call home. So I can only imagine the experience that Palestinians are having in their homeland and Palestinians are having around the world as they watch what's happening in their homeland. I have spoken from this dais many times also about the terrorism and the targeting that the Indian government does against Sikhs who are citizens of places like the United States and Canada, places where freedom of speech is something that is hailed as a personal freedom, but a right. And as I have shared from the small platform that I hold both virtually and here, it's all connected. It is. And I just wanted to thank you for sharing today, the sentiments that you've shared today. I apologize. I'm still recovering from being sick, but for a lifetime, the images we see online will haunt me personally and should stop us in our tracks every single day as we watch what unfolds. So just wanted to respond to you all and say that I acknowledge what you've shared and I echo your sentiment, and just wanted to speak for myself today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Core. Next item, please. That would not be appropriate. I'm going to ask you to not disturb the meeting, please. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Consent calendar items 7A through 7I for approval.
Vice Mayor.
Does any member of the City Council wish to recuse themselves from an item on the consent calendar tonight? Seeing none, I have a few requests for separate consideration of several items tonight from Councilmember Gray. She's requesting item 7C1 be removed for separate consideration, along with 7E2. Councilmember Freeman is asking for 7E1 be removed for separate consideration. And Councilmember Weir has 3 items to remove for separate consideration: 7D3, 7E1, and 7E4. With that, I move to adopt all of the remaining consent calendar items.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes. All right. These 3.
Motion is unanimously approved.
Thank you. And now the next item, 7C1. Councilmember Gray.
Thank you, Mayor Go. 7C1 is the first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 8.27.015 relating to maintenance of vacant buildings. We have discussed the vacant building situation in Bakersfield since I've been on the council the last 3 years many times, and I know that there's definitely an issue there that that continues to perpetuate itself. I know particularly in Councilmember Gonzalez' ward, it seems like he's had more fires and that type of thing in his ward, and I recognize those challenges that we're having. But I do not believe that this ordinance is going to do anything but just create more layers of unnecessary government when we already have the ability to enforce blighted properties. Since I've been on the council to date, we've hired more code enforcement officers. We've established the receivership program. We've set money aside to buy nuisance properties. So in my mind, I feel that registering vacant properties of these people who are obviously very irresponsible property owners, if they are not going to be motivated by liens and ordinances that are already on the books, I don't think they're going to be real given to register their vacant property. And in doing so, if we pass this ordinance, then we've added just more layer of government, more responsibility on staff to try to police a situation. And we're already in a situation where we can pass all the ordinances all day that we want to, but if we don't have any way to enforce them, they're not, there's no teeth in them. So I definitely cannot support this because I believe we already have everything that we need in place to be able to address blighted and nuisance properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gray. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Gray, for your comments. You are right. I do represent downtown Bakersfield and Old Town Kern that has a higher concentration of commercial properties that are vacant and have been chronically vacant, not only for a few years, but in some instances, several decades. And there is evidence that this vacant structure and property registry would actually bear some fruit. We have a number of our business owners and property owners within the downtown core who have no idea who the property owner is of a vacant structure adjacent to them or in their nearby neighborhood. And this registry would require every property owner to post the name and the contact information of the responsible party, whether that be a management company or the property owner. So it's clear today, it's clear as day to every single person who is responsible for that property, holding that property owner accountable for the maintenance of that building. We want to prevent structure fires. We want to prevent having to respond to code enforcement violations. And we do that through a proactive effort related to developing a registry. In fact, we have the capacity to enforce and to implement this registry. In the last fiscal year, this council approved 2 additional code enforcement officers to begin this work. And they've done a great job actually getting started and informing many property owners within the downtown area of this upcoming resolution. I should also note for the public that this comes from a referral that I made probably a year ago, and it's been in the Planning and Development Committee and workshopped by my colleagues on the Planning and Development Committee for several months. And so I'm very eager to see this resolution adopted. I think it's a step forward in the effort to revitalize downtown Bakersfield. I think that the vacant structures for too long have undermined many of our efforts to revitalize the urban core in downtown and Old Town Kern, and we must press forward. So with that, I'm going to make a motion to adopt the first reading of an ordinance related to the maintenance of vacant buildings.
Thank you. You have a motion. Please cast your votes. Oh, no, I'm not getting, we're trying a new technology system tonight, and I'm just not seeing, I just saw Councilmember Arias just now. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Councilmember Weir. That's just not showing on my monitor. So if you can take care of that, TS or City Clerk, please.
So I have a number of these properties in my ward also, and it's frustrating as could be to watch those buildings sit there and get tagged or burned or what all you can do inside a burned out building. I don't know. But Christian, maybe you could spread some light on if we register these buildings, what does that do for us?
Thank you, Councilmember Weir. The registry is designed to provide us greater clarity and certainty on which properties are in that status. I think it also, the way that the ordinance is designed, if individual properties fail to comply with the registry, it increases our ability to assess fines or assessments against them. I think those are probably the two most notable. But if Mr. Boyle or Phil Burns would like to add anything, you are welcome to.
Thank you, City Manager Clegg. I would note one additional thing is that signage and ownership of the issue is part of the ordinance as well. And so when you're seeing vacant buildings being broken into or perhaps are found in a substandard condition, broken windows or what have you, the placement of windows on our tour, placement of signage as in Fresno, which we went to as part of a tour, provided an opportunity where someone could call immediately and ask for that issue to be abated right away. If the council wishes, Building Director Phil Burns is here. He could elaborate on the benefits of the program as well, the ordinance as well. And if the council so desires, he has a presentation that's available that could more fully discuss the ordinance at hand.
I think I would like that.
Mr. Burns?
Good evening, councils. Is there a mount? Okay. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'll give you a brief overview of our vacant commercial building registry. A little background, as already discussed, this has been in the Planning Development Committee. It's actually something that I've talked in committee for many, many years about the option of this registry. And this particular set of ordinances is just an amendment, a couple different sections to our existing vacant building ordinance. And what the committee actually did is we presented the ordinance, and we also provided staff a discussion on the implementation and also some research that was requested. The registry program itself is a framework that addresses vacant buildings that have been vacant for over 30 days. And with the intent are the ones that are not really rental properties and someone's actively renting them. These are properties that are being dilapidated, their owners are just completely ignoring the maintenances. There are things that over the years code enforcement has multiple code violations. We have set this up in a manner that those of you that have used the Bakersfield mobile app, a property owner could use the mobile app and actually register their property. So our intent is to make this as user-friendly as we can and not have a fee for someone to register. Any of the fees or penalties would be based on someone not registering, but if they do, we want them to comply and actually promote that. The current process will utilize our current mechanisms for enforcement, which are the nuisance abatement overview, which is the property maintenance, the typical things we have today, junk, trash, debris, something that's not boarded up, a property that's broken windows. Our current 880 ordinance is all of our abatement processes, which those recently were amended about October last year. that provided us expedited methods to address things that are very severe. And also, we can also use all the building construction ordinances that are currently on the books. The ordinance that was adopted about last October, it placed these items in code, which really places what a vacant building is, the posting information, and also the fire damage is to be fixed within the 90 days. What we've found, though, is most of the ones that we're dealing with today, they are damaged to a point where we're doing some other process. It's not just really trying to maintain this structure that is sound, that really needs to be rehabbed for someone to move in. Maybe they just need that tenant, and maybe it's the electric's damaged. The ones that we're really dealing with today and focusing on with code enforcement are the ones that are truly the chronic nuisances that we need to do the receivership that was brought up, that need to be demolished completely. So this is a tool that moves us kind of in a different direction. Instead of just dealing with those that are really that severe building, now we want to take the ones that we really want to move a tenant in, and maybe we have a local landlord or someone that's out of town that's just ignoring their property. This is a tool that we can get them to register, use that information, and try to push a local property manager. I mean, their intent in this is that they respond on a timely basis. So we want that a local person really to be that property manager. And then our non-compliance, as we have stated right now, is based on our current codes, which is we could use our 880 to abate it, like you guys have all seen. Or we could use our administrative citation process to give them a citation of $1,000. Or we can give them a criminal cite. Again, it's another tool that's kind of taken down another layer of the onion of our vacant commercial buildings. It's not really hitting those that are really the ones we're trying to demolish and rehab. It's the ones that are just sitting that we like to see as viable contributors to our community as far as businesses or offices that are not being used. And our rollout of this program would be the hazmat areas for our cleanup. There was the downtown, Old Town Kern. That gives us kind of that focus area to roll it out with its first 2 staff members, because again, it's 2 staff members taking on the entire city right now, and all of our major corridors would just be impossible for code enforcement to take that on. So we would start with this area once we had this kind of area under control as far as the initial process. Then we would start moving out into the other major thoroughfares, the Ming Avenues, the White Lanes, the other areas that we have a lot of these type structures. And to kind of summarize some of the research that the committee asked for, we looked at what cities are charging a registration fee, what cities are charging a non-registration fee, and then what's the citations look like or the administrative fines for non-registration. And we only had one jurisdiction that had the specific penalty for non-registration, which was Fresno's $250 a month. All other jurisdictions, they allowed their administration citations. So if they had a program, they would go to their administrative citation portion and they would apply that section. And what we found is that varied dramatically. We had some cities that only went from like $100 minimum to $500. We'd have others that went from that 500 all the way up to the 10,000 mark. So that information really varied dramatically. With that, I'm here to answer any other questions you may have regarding the ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Councilmember Ware.
Okay. We do cite them and try to maintain it and everything, but do they actually pay the citations that we give them? Do they actually pay money for that?
Councilmember Ware, our current code enforcement program, we haven't severely used the admin citations. I'd have to defer to the city attorney on other groups that have used it, but we normally, when we have a building that needs some abatement, we use the 880 tool. So we can go bait it ourselves, and under that section, this is kind of changing the strategy of what we're using today. So that percentage of people using, I don't have a track record that could tell you really for our stuff.
Mayor, Councilmember Ware, I would have to agree with Mr. Burns. I think we're agreeing. I don't keep track of that either, which tells me that they're likely not paying.
Well, and that's what I'm assuming. We can build them all we want to build them, but they're not even taking care of their own property. What makes someone think that they're going to pay a fine? So, you know, I have two very dangerous buildings. The one is the old Chase Bank on Mount Vernon and near Columbus. And then on Height and Haley Street, in the back corner, there's a metal shed there that's been there as sharp as could be. If anybody gets in there, they're likely to kill themselves or injure themselves at least. I don't know any certificate or a warning or anything is going to do that. So there has to be some remedy for that.
Councilmember Weir?
I don't know what that is.
I know that the two structures you're referring to are on our current chronic nuisance list. Those are ones that we are currently adding to. Last year we had almost over 100 properties we went through, and we're able to abate them in some way. The two that you're referring to are on our current year list. So I kind of agree. This registry is not really meant for those type structures. Those we need to use our chronic nuisance tools that were back in the previous ordinances over a year ago that we're working through as 2 years in that program. I'd be happy to talk to you another time specifically about those buildings.
Okay. Is there no way that we can establish our own ordinance? And I know it's going to be complicated, but if these type of properties come up and they're not taken care of, nobody cares if they're cited or anything. At a point in time, it seems like we could remedy the situation ourselves.
Mayor, Councilmember Weir, I think that's precisely why the council put into effect the receivership program. And I think as the council knows, we've been fairly successful actually with at least 2 properties that I'm aware of, and now we have 3 others that we're putting in that program. The issue, however, with the receivership is it takes a while, and that's just that's just part of the process. But we have been doing great work actually with this receivership with Deputy City Attorney Zambrano as well as Elizabeth, and working hand in hand with Phil's team.
I understand you're all doing the best.
Yeah.
I understand that. But there has to be a point where it cannot be tolerated anymore. That metal building over there, somebody's going to get in there and get hurt. It's absolutely going to happen. And the bank building, almost every other night, it's on fire. So can we develop something that's just for the city to deal with those kind of situations? And even if, I know there's property there and they've got dirt and all that, but just getting rid of what's on top of the dirt would be awesome.
Councilmember Weir, our special project team with code enforcement, that's exactly what we're doing today. There was the chronic nuisance toolkit that went through Planning Development Committee that provided us the tools of increasing funding for demolitions, the receivership program, the property purchase program. What I'm trying to convey, I guess, is the 2 properties you're talking about, they didn't score high enough based on that criteria for last year, but they are on our list to address this year with that program, whether it be a demolition, a receivership, or if it's something that could be used for residential, it could be even a city purchase. Those are being scored as we speak. That staff committee meets in February, and we'll have an idea of kind of how quick those will be taken down based on, it's a score based on the use of city resources. Fire department, police department, code enforcement calls for service. And that's how we've been triaging this chronic nuisance vacant buildings and properties to kind of bring them into compliance.
If I may, Councilmember, let me add two other thoughts that I think may help. I would add to what Mr. Burns has shared is that we've had actually a really big backlog for a long time because we didn't have these tools in place. We've put them in place, we've hired staff, and we're working our way through the backlog, and we're actually making a lot of progress. And we demolished, I think, nearly 100 buildings last year, and we're on pace to do the same this year. So that's part of it, is the catch-up work. So I don't feel like we don't have the tools. We've just recently implemented them, and we're working through the backlog. I would also, and I welcome the city attorney's viewpoint on this, but I don't think we lack the legal tools to say we're going to go ahead and just take action on that property. But because property rights are what they are, we have processes that have to just play out in order to do that. And we've actually, the chronic nuisance code was aimed to speed those processes up, and those have been adopted to speed up some of those abatements. But when we talk about basically taking away a person's property rights, we have to go to judges and go through courts, and those things just take time. But the tools do exist.
So just one last question. About how long is it from now until those specific buildings are gone and taken care of?
That's where it's hard to give you a exact time.
I don't need exact. I'm just.
These will be over the next 12 months. Will all be taken care of. There's right now we have 58 properties on that list, and it's growing. Just to give you an idea of the magnitude. So we're talking about 2, but it's 2 of the 58 that we have.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I don't agree with the action we're going to take tonight. I don't think that it's just a shuffling of a bunch of paper. I don't think it's going to have any net result, and I'm more hopeful of the process that we've just talked about. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Weir. Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. In reading the admin report and the resolution that we're considering, or excuse me, the ordinance that we're considering tonight, there's a lot of reference to a tiered list, but I have not seen one in the packet. Am I missing that piece, or has that been established and talked about yet?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Arias, you're talking about the list of the chronic nuisance? Is that what you're referring to?
I'm referring to the tiered fine if somebody does not register on time.
Councilmember Arias, we currently do not have a tiered fine schedule. That was something that the committee asked for us to research. So we would need direction from council on how you guys would like us to proceed with that element.
Great, thank you so much. With that, I'm happy to support this, the motion on the table with that addition that we take this back to P&D and flesh out that tiered list.
I'd be happy to amend the motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Arias. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just say that, we've been addressing this issue for some time, and as Councilman Weir mentioned, he's got chronic nuisance properties, and if we had not years ago started addressing this issue and had the tools in place that we do now, the demolition and the receivership, then we wouldn't be able to address those properties. And this ordinance, like you say, is another step to help reduce vacant properties. And it's another tool for us to use to clean up Bakersfield, and so I am for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Vice Mayor.
Just one last comment I want to make clear for the benefit of all of us on the dais and the public at large. 4 years ago, 2020, I made a referral for Planning and Development Committee and staff to work on a chronic nuisance property toolkit. We knew that not one ordinance, not one initiative was going to solve the problems related to chronic nuisance properties for every single property. We knew it's a very complicated process, and there are different situations, and there are specific tools that actually are effective for a specific property. So we can exchange different scenarios of this property or this property. And yes, this vacant property registry will not be the panacea. And it will not be effective for all property types, but there are a good handful of properties, a good list of properties in downtown Bakersfield, especially along Chester Avenue, where it actually will be effective. So I appreciate the support from some of my colleagues, and I think we have a motion on the table. Mayor, will you please call the vote?
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with council members Weir and Gray voting no.
Thank you. And now 7D3, Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor. I wonder, Christian, maybe you could give us a little more specifics about what this program is designed to do and where it's supposed to take us.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Ware, Mayor and Council. This specific action would accept funding from the Federal Environmental Protection Agency. It would allow us to hire staff to conduct planning exercises, as well as principally it's about grant writing. So the federal government has created a program that they're funding the 60 largest urban centers in the city. They're providing funds for those regions to do resiliency planning. I would just reflect openly with this council that we are most interested in gaining access to infrastructure grants that would allow us to fund projects that are already in our work plan and that we're already interested in. The way we can fund them it could be a variety of different ways, but if we can access this resiliency planning funds, we think that that's a good way to get the projects funded. We recognize that there may be some other regions that may be pursuing, I guess, as a policy or an ideology, significant resiliency planning. Our intent is more centered around being able to build infrastructure projects that we already have on our lists. But would also acknowledge and note that this program would require us to provide some documentation to the federal government, provide these plans to the federal government, but it has very notable local control and flexibility. And so what it would really do is put us in a good position to apply for significant infrastructure grants. There's $4.3 billion in federal EPA grants that we can apply for in just the next few months. And then over the next few years, while state funds are drying up quickly in the grant space, the Federal Inflation Reduction Act and other stimulus monies, the federal government moves fairly slowly. So there are still very large buckets of money that are coming down through competitive grants over the next 2 to 3 year period. And this would allow us to hire a staff person to write those grants and also write other grants to try and get these infrastructure dollars. There's a little bit of a trade-off there that we do need to conduct these planning processes. And so we've been reaching out to community stakeholders to invite them to the table. And we've been very clear because resiliency planning can also look like the general plan update. And also we would openly acknowledge that folks that participated in the feedback around the initial climate action plan that we've taken a different course on as a city. This would be very distinct and different from that. But we're wanting to get stakeholder engagement and involvement to make sure that we're looking at the projects that have broad support. And those projects are things like park improvements, sidewalk and road improvements, tree canopy additions. We have the ability to fund some affordable housing projects potentially, solar panel projects as well. I would also reflect that the EPA has a number of other eligible projects, but we're focused on those in that list that I just gave that are the ones that we know are already in our plans, and there's broad interest in pursuing those. And so I think that's the biggest focus for us and where it takes us.
So there's a list of a lot of local organizations that aren't really jumping up and down in joy for this. So why is that?
Yeah, I think that, Councilmember Weir, is that because this is around climate or resiliency planning, they just want to be on record and notice that they want to watch that planning process to make sure that it doesn't include policy recommendations and projects that would harm the local economy, local development costs, our local industries. And I would express publicly that that has been our interest and commitment as well. We're not interested in pursuing planning pieces under this grant that would make it, more costly to build homes, or that would make it more difficult to continue to pursue our economic strategies. And so we, again, have had, good conversations with some of these partners to say we would love to have you at the table and walk through this process with us to make sure that it is aligned with community interests.
So they've already offered to be at the table for these items?
Yes.
And they're going to engage and they'll be heard?
Yes.
Okay. I'll make the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Weir. Vice Mayor.
I'm sorry. Councilmember Weir made the motion.
Okay. You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is unanimously approved.
Thank you. And now, next item, E1, and we have two on this, Councilmember Freeman and Councilmember Weir. Councilmember Freeman, go ahead. Can you just pull your mic a little closer, please? Thanks.
A little closer? Okay. I had a couple of questions about the proposed program. It says we would spend $2.7 million over 5 years to open up, I think it was 4 libraries that the county is not keeping open. I'd like to remind you the county has 100% responsibility for libraries and spending from their budgets to keep libraries open. That is their responsibility. So I'm a little concerned about starting to backfill county functions where they're simply not funding them. Over time, believe me, not that we won't do this, but when we do this, we will be asked for future additional things in the future to backfill where they don't provide a service that they're supposed to, and then we suffer, so we start covering county expenditures. I'm concerned about that. However, I'm all for libraries. I'm all for education. My first career, I was a teacher. Another area I have of concern is by simply keeping libraries open, I don't see the connection with reducing youth violence. I agree that literacy is a tool to bring us out of poverty and out of violence, but just leaving the lights on in a library doesn't give me a lot of confidence that violent-prone youth will go in there and study. If we were talking about programs, tutoring to increase their literacy at the library that we were paying for, targeted programs to help youth, vulnerable youth, I could see a connection or a potential connection. But simply turning the lights on and opening it, thinking this will reduce youth violence and the violent-prone youth are going to go there, I'm skeptical, put it that way, and I don't think anybody could provide any evidence that this would work. It's an idea, but it's an expensive idea. $2.7 million is a lot of money. So I had a couple of ideas that would help me support this. First, also $1 million of his ARPA funds, and those are funds I think are the use it or lose it type of funds. First $1 million. I would want to be sure that there was a condition that the first $1 million of expenditures towards this program came from the ARPA funds as opposed to coming out of our Measure N or general fund. And my other requirement would be that after the second year, because it takes a couple of years to boot up a program and be sure it works and fine tune it, that after the second year, we have an independent party evaluate, is the program working? Are we in fact seeing the youth we suspected go to the libraries, increase their literacy? I can't tell you how to measure that. We need someone other than myself say, well, how would we measure that? Has violence gone down? Do we have some evidence that would be convincing to a reasonable person that, hey, it's been over $500,000 a year, that yes, this is resulting in less youth violence, because that's why we're saying we're doing it, not simply to open libraries. So I would make a motion to approve this program with the caveat that the first funds spent were the ARPA funds, unless the city manager says that's not possible for some reason, okay? And number two, the beginning, after the second year, there's an independent evaluation of whether or not the program is working to achieve its goals. So that'd be my motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman. Councilmember Weir, you also pulled this item.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Freeman, but I have a little bit different timeline. Have we gone, libraries have gone through a challenge over the past few years. I mean, they really have. And so we're not talking about giving money in the future. We're talking about $2.7 million right now. That's all well and good, but if we had somebody
That's not my understanding. I thought it was a 5-year program. So it's
Okay.
it's
Well,
spent over 5 years.
Okay, that's fine. Fine. It's still 500 that is going out right now. Have we had anybody come in and look at the library system and see what's going on, how we could improve it, what would make people use it more, use the facility? It just seems like we're just going to have more hours in a little program enhancement, but that's not, I don't think that's good enough.
Thanks, Councilmember Ware. The city has not had a sort of an independent evaluator, make an assessment of the county library system. I don't believe that they've seen a report, although we could ask the county if there have been other reports about a sort of formal assessment. However, the county library system and staff did survey patrons to understand, what are those types of programs and activities, as well as collections, meaning books, that would be the greatest draw. And that's how they developed this proposal, was based on the fact that the technology in the libraries is sort of a disincentive for folks to come today because it's outdated, but newer technologies would bring more folks into the libraries. Also, that newer books would also bring more folks into libraries, but that in particular, the programming was a very important component that they found. The patrons said, we really want to see maker spaces, 3D printers, Lego clubs, and the like, to bring people into the library. And that's really a first step. Once you're into the library and you're in that safe space and active there, then some of the other good outcomes can come. I can also just share from a fiscal standpoint, we did do some comparisons. And the total costs for the Kern County library system compared to most comparable counties are much, much lower than most counties. The value that they provide in their staffing cost was actually, frankly, a surprise to me that they could provide this many hours at that cost. Significantly lower than most counties of a similar size. And so from a fiscal standpoint, I can say that they are providing their services at one of the most competitive costs I've seen.
Okay, well, thank you. But I still think that Mr. Freeman made the motion. He wants an evaluation done a year from now. I'm thinking that could start sooner than that. and that we get it going and up and going and see, and someone needs to evaluate if they're getting what they want when they go to the library. So with that, I guess that's a little change in council member. Do I need to?
You can either make a new motion with that, or maybe Councilmember Freeman will accept your amendment.
Councilmember Freeman? Can you turn your mic on, please?
I had set an evaluation after the second year because no program gets up and fine-tuned and running well in 1 year. It takes two to do any sort of an honest evaluation. So I tried to say, after the second year by an independent evaluator, and that the council, if I left this out, I needed, the council will have to approve continuing to spend the money. And that's why I asked the ARPA funds, which I know there's some deadlines and we could just lose the money altogether with this ARPA if we don't spend it. So I said, we spend $1 million first, that'll take us almost through the second year. So we will put very few city dollars out by the time we get to evaluate and the council vote all over again. Is this thing working? Is it worth the money now that it's our money to go forward? So that's an explanation of my motion.
Okay, that's fine. I'll go with that explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Weir. Councilmember Kaur.
I'd like to make another motion that this item be adopted as is. It never fails to surprise me when something like libraries are made controversial or books. First, I want to thank just librarians, the librarians of our existing library system who welcomed my family into Wilson Library as a child without judgment. I spent week after week after week at Wilson Library learning how to read as a kid, and spent countless hours with my grandfather who didn't speak English. And my mother, after delivering mail all day, would take us to the library so that I could max out on however many books that my library card allowed me to check out. And then I would beg my sister to check out some of my books on her library card because I had already maxed out however many I could take home. And that was after having spent hours reading books at the library, but then selecting completely different books to take home. And that is a privilege, a luxury that I didn't realize was a luxury as a child. And now our library systems and our librarians and those who are creating these third spaces for young people, children, and families are begging us to support. So thank you to the librarians who helped me learn how to read, helped me learn how to read English and read to my grandfather and make those memories in my childhood at Wilson Library. I treasure that and hold that very close to my heart and will forever. And I also want to thank our County Board of Supervisors who supported this initiative. And I know we had a press conference the other day that I was very sad to miss because of being sick, and I apologize. But County Board of Supervisors, Leticia Perez, and our Supervisor Jeff Flores, as well as my colleagues, Vice Mayor Andre Gonzalez and Eric Arias, who were in attendance, to really show that we can model what collaboration looks like for the city and county. And if that starts at the city showing us and showing some support to county services in all of our expenditures, I think this is a small investment into the children and the families of our communities. And you know, for any of my colleagues who have not seen how effective a library can be, I encourage you to visit one this week. There are many programs that happen that are beyond just the lights being kept on. There are parenting classes. There are so many engaging programs that happen, and we don't need an evaluation because our librarians and our libraries are the only. You go and you see how effective they are, and that is the tool you need to evaluate how effective they are. I trust our libraries and I trust our librarians to be as effective with however many hours that they get to keep their lights on and go beyond, just as our teachers and educators do. They go above and beyond because they understand what a luxury it is to have those public spaces available to families. And my other point and question, kind of, and it's theoretical, it's rhetorical, but how can we expect violence prevention to go down if the lights of a library are not even on? Like, there is absolutely a correlation, and you will see that in the programming if you have the opportunity to go to your local library sometime soon. So yeah, I'm surprised. I support this, and I think it should be think it should be adopted as is. And I know we have folks here from our library systems here today too, and just really thank you. I would not know how to read if it wasn't for our Kern County library system. So I appreciate you, and I thank you. I also got my first COVID vaccine at Wilson Library, so it literally saved my life.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to join my colleague, Councilmember Kaur, in thanking all of our librarians. We have the director of Kern County Library System right here with us tonight, Andy Sullivan. Thank you for being here. Longtime librarian and community activist Christy Coons is here this evening. Several other library staff are with us this evening as well. Thank you so much for all the work that you do day in and day out for our community. On behalf of my constituents representing Ward 2, I want to thank you for all of the services you provide our community. I need to, before I move on, just get something off my chest, because there was a comment made earlier. No child is violence prone. No child is violence prone. Children are full of opportunity, they're full of talent, they're full of skills, they're full of potential. All children are full of potential. And we as city leaders have to believe that. No matter where they live, no matter what their circumstances are, every single child is full of potential. And we know, and there's plenty of evidence that supports the reality that poverty creates so many obstacles for children to realize that full potential. Obstacles for them to seek out those opportunities. And it's incumbent upon us as community leaders to break down those obstacles so that more and more children can realize who they are and who they were intended to be. No child is violence prone. And if we start from that idea, we're already losing. I believe that this opportunity is a way for us to invest in our children and families, particularly in our most disadvantaged neighborhoods. Baker Street Library, Baker Street Branch Library, is currently open only 2 days a week. Holloway Gonzalez, Southeast Bakersfield, 2 days a week. We spend a lot of time talking about revitalization and redevelopment. But what does it matter if we're not truly investing in the opportunities of our young people? I remember, as Councilmember Kaur shares her stories, I remember the impact that libraries have had on my life growing up. I grew up with 3 siblings at home, and all 4 of us were bored out of our minds over the summer. We had very little to do. We didn't have the means to take fancy vacations or go to summer camps or to do music lessons or, I don't know, other things that other families did. We went to the library. Sometimes we walked to the library. And we all got our library cards and we checked out a bunch of books, and I was so mad all the time because my younger sister always outread. She was always a faster reader and she was so much smarter than I was. But I was so competitive and I just worked. But we enjoyed the libraries and all the programming that existed at Beale, at Baker, at Northeast. And it did help shape and mold my own life. And I pray that we provide that opportunity for the citizens, the children who live within the city of Bakersfield. Here's the other thing that we need to consider. The city of Bakersfield is one of the very few cities that actually doesn't contribute to its regional library system. If you take a look at all other major cities throughout the state of California, many of them, most of them, contribute financially to their regional library system. Some cities have their own municipal library system. So it's not far-fetched, it's not outlandish, it's not unreasonable to expect the city of Bakersfield, the largest city, metropolitan city in this county, to participate financially in its regional library system. Our constituents, our citizens benefit probably the most. And we can talk about the sales tax and all of that, but that's beside, I mean, I think that helps illustrate the point, but it's a little too much on the weeds. We have a responsibility to step up. We have an opportunity, though, to really invest in the future of all of our young people, particularly those in Southeast Bakersfield, in East Bakersfield, in South Bakersfield, who desperately need it. So I'm pushing forward that we adopt this agreement as is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think there's one of us sitting on this dais or city staff or anyone in this room that would disagree that literacy is the best way to solve poverty and to solve crime. And I think we're all definitely on that page. And so I've got to support my colleague, Councilmember Freeman, in what he's proposing, because he is not, he's a Harvard graduate, for Pete's sakes. So he is not saying, let's not support literacy, let's not support libraries. He's not making that motion at all. What he is saying is, as stewards of the city and the finances of the city, let's support what we have here tonight, but in turn, let's just add another part to it to where we can gauge what's going on. And because we're talking about, I think libraries should be open, and there's a lot of families that are going to use the libraries. So I don't debate that at all. But this particular item is for violence prevention. And there are those youth in our city that are at a real tipping point, that if they get the services they need, they can engage in the library system. That could be the thing that could turn them around, so they don't go into that lifestyle. But we need to be able to gauge that, and we need to have programs that are going to draw these young people into the libraries. And I think something that is so needed with so many latchkey children out there today, their parents are working hard. Maybe their parents aren't working. Maybe they're drug addicts. They need somebody to help them with tutoring, with being able to come into a library and have maybe retired teachers or teachers that are in the credentialing program or whatever, that they can begin to pour into these children and mentor them. Because as we all know, mentoring is very powerful. So I am going to support the motion and would like to remake the motion that we support, that we not only support this item, but we also add just a little bit of an assurance on there that we can dig down in, and for our own sake, for everybody, it'll be exciting. It's not a negative thing to add that. It's exciting that we can see the progress that we make, that it's actually measurable. And so I would like to make that motion to support Councilman Freeman's motion, if I can do that.
I think it's the same motion that Councilmember Freeman made. So his was just supporting it through ARPA and then having the evaluation.
All right.
Correct.
I just don't
So-
know what comes first. That's the thing. So what are we voting?
Councilmember Corr's motion will come first.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now Councilmember Freeman. Are you finished with your comments, Councilmember Gray?
Yes,
Okay,
but, well, no,
Councilmember-
I'm not. I just
Oh,
want
go
to say
ahead.
very quickly, if I vote no on this because I'm in support of his motion, I don't want anybody here thinking that you're leaving here tonight, that I don't support the library system and I don't support the additional hours to the library system. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Freeman.
One additional sort of point was that I think by bringing the program back to the council to see how it's going after 2 years, and saying, you know, the council will simply reauthorize if it's working. Not only I think that's being responsible stewards of the purse, but I also think it puts a sort of a tone, whatever, over the program that we need to make it work. It's not on autopilot regardless of whether it works or not. And I think this will motivate people to bring programs into these libraries to achieve the goal of tutoring, mentoring these kids. Things that are put on autopilot with no responsibility and no accountability, I don't think we get the best out of any program or anyone when we do that. I just think bring it back. There may be comments that improvements come to the program. When we hear, here's how it's going, here's what's going on, council and others may say, well, there's other things we could do, we could modify, we can make things better. But when things are, we never see it again for 5 years, I just don't think that's, I don't think that's the way to run a program. So that's why I'd like to see brought to the council, explained, changed, reauthorized after a 2-year startup period to get going. So.
Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you,
rest my case.
Councilmember Smith now.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. I'm for the original program. I think libraries are great, and they do what we believe they will do. But ask the city manager, in the agreement, is there requirements? Do they give us feedback? What exactly are we looking for?
Yeah, thank you,
from the county?
Councilmember Smith, Mayor and Council. You know, the agreement does provide the opportunity for the city to provide feedback and regular check-ins. There's metrics that we've asked to collect. It does not go as far as requiring an evaluation. If I may, just while I have the floor, I would just share, and out of respect of council conversation, didn't want to be too presumptive, but I think as a best practice to make a commitment to evaluate this program, I don't have a problem doing that as a best practice. I would also suggest that there are other intervention and prevention programs that we've issued an RFP for, but they just aren't all ready to come forward to the council at this time. But I think it would be fantastic to include tutoring and after-school programs and mentoring in these library spaces. That's just a good idea we plan to pursue regardless of which motion moves forward. So just wanted to state that I do think those are both very good practices, not required in the MOU today, but I think we can still implement those.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Vice Mayor.
So if we were to amend our motion, as Councilmember Freeman is suggesting, would that then revise the agreement, which in turn would take it back to the Board of Supervisors and the county for review?
Thank you, Councilmember, or Vice Mayor Gonzalez. I think that's a good point. I think if we're asking Kern County to require that within the MOU, that would require an amendment and to go back to the Board of Supervisors and back here. I think I make a little bit of an assumption that as a partner, we would be welcomed opportunities to assess and evaluate together. But also I would state, I think we can evaluate youth outcomes in the neighborhoods around the libraries with an independent evaluation without changing the MOU.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to make another motion to adopt the agreement as is, but also that we work with the county in partnership with our library system in order for us to develop an evaluation protocol and system. That's my motion.
Okay, I don't see any of the requests to speak.
I had requested to speak.
Madam Clerk, I am not seeing any
sorry.
of this on my screen.
I can't see the list. I don't know what it is.
No. We've got a little technical glitch, and we're working through things today, so thank you for being so patient with us.
I've lost
This is
my
really
place.
our first day with this new system. So they've worked really hard in trying to train us, and sometimes technical glitches happen. Councilmember Kaur.
Question for Christian. In the signed agreement on 2.7, it says both city and county shall perform an annual evaluation of the program and its associated cost and any mutually agreed adjustments, such as additional increases in the applicable consumer price index, all of that text. Does the evaluation that's being mentioned or suggested, is that not already in the agreement?
Thank you, Councilmember Kaur. I appreciate that attention to that detail. We reviewed that a little bit more as sort of a financial evaluation, not necessarily a performance
Money,
evaluation. However, I think the language is broad enough that it leaves us the space to do that. And again, I don't think that would be problematic to suggest creating an evaluative framework to make sure that we're seeing good outcomes in our libraries.
So if that text is already there, can't you just build it in, since instead of having to go back to the Board of Supervisors to start this entire process over again?
Again, thank you, Councilmember Kaur and Mayor and Council. I think the Vice Mayor's motion does not require us to have the MOU go back before the Board of Supervisors again. I don't believe that.
And what will this evaluation system, or how are we measuring this? What are the measurable outcomes of, like, are we going to count every child that's we've prevented from going into some sort of violent lifestyle? I mean, that's such a difficult thing to quantify. I mean, I guess I'm curious how you would measure the success of such a program when the library system's being open alone and running programming and coming up with new programming and putting the experts in charge of how they would create that programming and evaluation systems, to me, makes much more sense.
Thank you, Councilmember Kaur. Again, I believe the Vice Mayor's motion for the city and the county to work together to create that framework makes a lot of sense, because I can't tell you today each of the measures. I can tell you that there have been other communities that have done similar programs and developed some frameworks, and we can look at those and compare those and do the best practice research. But I think the motion as it is, it gives the space for the city and the county to design an evaluation program that would be meaningful and doable.
Councilmember Kaur, anything else? Councilmember Freeman.
Did you say me?
Yes.
I just point of clarification here. I think we have three motions, and I think really the only substantive difference, because now there'll be an evaluation, is that I believe mine is the only motion that says it's not on autopilot, that will come back to the council to decide if we continue with the program. If it's meeting, I mean, the council can decide, yeah, it's meeting good enough goals for us. I mean, that's a subjective decision, but I think what I was trying to achieve is that it would come back and we would actually find out as a council how this was going, as opposed to it simply will continue and we'll never hear about it again, or we'll never have the ability to make corrective actions or changes. So I will say my motion did stipulate that after 2 years, it would come back to be reauthorized here. I have to ask, is that something that violates the contract with the county, that you can't even do that?
Mayor, Councilmember Freeman, the way I read the contract that's already signed, it's a 5-year agreement. You can terminate it with 6 months notice. So if you
there's a way out if you really thought it wasn't, or you wanted to make a change and they weren't willing, or whatever.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so I guess that's kind of the only difference in my motion, is it comes back to the council after 2 years.
Okay.
Councilmember Gray.
So with that information, that helps a lot. Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. So can we make a referral that this comes back in 2 years so it gets on an agenda again? Because if we don't do that, it's just going to get lost in the shuffle, right?
Yeah. Right, you can. And,
Okay.
And what I would suggest to you is that, again, with the vice mayor's motion, that I perceive it as giving direction to the city manager to work with the county and to develop an evaluation protocol. And I would assume that when that evaluation protocol is developed, you would like it to come back to the council. If I am not assuming correctly, Vice Mayor, that would be a time for you to speak up.
That is correct.
Okay.
Any further
Thank you.
comments? You have a motion, which is the vice mayor's motion. Please cast your votes.
Ginny, I'm fine with taking my motion back to.
You don't need to do that. We're
it's
already
over.
voting.
We're already
on,
voting.
We're already
Okay.
voting on the
Okay,
vice
good.
mayor.
I was like, I don't know if you need me to, but I will if you need me to.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Freeman voting no.
Thank you. We're going to take a break, but before we do that, colleagues, City Clerk, could you just explain the problem that we're having? I think some of you aren't pressing the second button. So could you just go through that process for requesting to speak before we break?
The
This
challenge
is our
I'm
first
having
night.
is I can't. Is there no list that? So there's not a list that shows who the order of speaking. Okay,
Yeah.
only the mayor's. able
Yeah,
to-
but I
okay.
think it's, you need to press one more button. So, City Clerk, could you just go through the step really quickly about how to request to speak?
Mayor Go, thank you. There are two methods of requesting to speak. At the top right-hand corner of council members' screens, there is a small icon that looks like a microphone. If you select that, and then you have to confirm your request with the green
Confirm your
button.
request.
The other method is when the item is active, at the top of the item, there's a blue bar that allows you to request to speak. You have to confirm that item twice.
Thank you very much. And so let's take a 10-minute break and then be back here to continue. Right, let's continue with item 7E2, Councilmember Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, it's what we were just talking about, and what I'm in total favor of is agreement with Kern Literacy Council for youth violence prevention services, make free tutoring accessible, address educational gaps, improve academic performance, and enhance self-esteem. I think that's a good way to spend our money, and so I just wanted to pull that so that, because it kind of piggybacks on what the other discussion that we had, and I would like to see more investment in that area. I think that's a good investment. Thank you.
Thank you. And so
I'll
do
make
you
a
want to make
motion to approve Agreement 7E2.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Arias absent.
Thank you. And now, colleagues, Technology Services discovered what was going on with the request to speak. So just one more time, it's different from what we thought. City Clerk, would you please explain?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. There is a follow button on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. Please do not unselect that button. As we are going along the agenda, I am activating each active item. And when council members are selecting other agenda items to review the materials, and then requesting to speak, they are actually requesting to speak on the item that they have currently selected, not the item that is currently active on the agenda.
Thank you. Clear on that, everyone? Right, so now let's move on to 7E4, Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to continue to point out that we have affordable housing that this time it came out to $570,000 for each of the 58 units. And it is incredible. But at least we got the housing now, and I'll move to approve it.
You have a motion, please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Arias absent.
Thank you. Next item, please. Consent calendar public hearings, item 8. It's now time for the consent calendar hearings. The purpose of this section is to vote on all the items listed under consent calendar hearings in one motion without further comment. If anyone would like to speak on any of the hearing items listed, the item must be removed from this portion of the agenda. If an item is removed, it will be placed at the end of the regular public hearings portion of the meeting. Madam Clerk, let's see, where are we? Would you go ahead and announce the first item, please? Because I think we have some people who are going to abstain. All three, yeah.
Public hearing to consider business expansion agreement with BIOS Health Ltd. not to exceed $250,000.
Keep going.
Public hearing to consider EOA grant agreement with WA Consulting, $248,972.27 for facade improvements. And public hearing to consider action plan amendment number 5 to U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Action Plan.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
I, Councilmember Bob Smith, will abstain from item 8A. On the consent agenda, my vote to approve the consent agenda would apply to all those items, but not item A, due to a business investment.
Thank you. And Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I will recuse myself tonight from item 8B due to a source of campaign contribution. I will make the motion to adopt item 8A and 8C.
Before we do that, Mayor and Vice Mayor, could we open the public hearings and see if anyone would like to pull any of them?
We'll go there. Okay. At this time, I'll open the consent calendar public hearings, items 8A through C. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to request that a hearing item be removed from the consent calendar? If so, please come forward. This isn't the time to take testimony, only to remove the matter from the consent calendar hearings.
Thank you. Am I just to request it to be removed now?
Yes.
That's it? Okay. I would like to request it to be removed for 8B.
8B.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Does any council member wish to remove an item from the consent calendar hearings?
Just to be clear, we are removing 8AB for separate consideration.
All right, so at this point,
I'll make a motion to approve consent calendar public hearing items 8A and 8C.
you have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Arias absent.
Thank you. And then consent calendar hearing items 8A.
I just wanted to clarify that you had my
Yes, and I just want the record to reflect that Councilmember Smith recused. So it's a 5-0 with one recusal and one absence.
All right, so two items, 8A and 8C, are now closed. And at this time, we'll consider 8B. Okay.
Mayor and Council, our interim economic and community development director, Jenny Byers, can provide some context on this item.
Thank you, Council. The downtown EOA recently did a competitive process. We were released to NOFA. We received 40 applications for a total request of $3.7 million. We had staff review it. We had someone from the building department. We had two members of the economic and community development department team review. The one that came out the clear most desired project was located at 1400 19th Street. It is the previous Woolworth building, and because of what they wanted to do, it was the largest project. There's a prevailing wage that comes into effect if you're greater than 25,000, and so staff was recommending a complete approval of this project in the amount of $248,972.27, and it is for the facade improvement at the previous Woolworth building. It's a historic building in the community. The Luncheonette was the last one remaining in the United States. The company that is here today, WA Consulting, is planning to reopen that. They're going to be remodeling the entire building and opening up that ground floor for other retail space. And because of that, the city staff was proposing that this project be awarded their full amount.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any requests to speak from council?
You had public first, right?
Public?
Mayor,
No?
if you want to
No.
ask, please, the typical hearing, all those in favor of staff's recommendation, all those against, please.
We have requests to speak. All those in favor of staff's recommendation, at this point, you have an opportunity to speak. Oh, yeah. I'm so tired. 2 hours with 3 nights.
Thank you all. It's wonderful to see this all in action, so I appreciate it. Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and esteemed council members, my name is Emily Waite, one of the owners of the historic Woolworth building in downtown Bakersfield. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight, this evening, regarding the public hearing to consider the EOA grant agreement with WA Consulting. This grant will support critical restoration needs that would otherwise be cost prohibitive, allowing us to revitalize this historic structure. As owners, we have prioritized honoring and maintaining the building's historic nature for the benefit of the city, the community, and future generations. After acquiring the building, our executive committee sat down and wanted to be very intentional about outlining our project's intentions and its goals. And this led to the creation of our mission statement for the project I'd like to share with you now. Quote, "The Woolworth is a community-based business who, through an adaptive reuse of a nationally historic downtown building, strives to redevelop and lift the tide for the community of Bakersfield." End quote. We intend to revive the history, build upon it, enhance it, and incorporate it into the character of our reimagined downtown. We are seeking lasting, positive change for our beloved city. Our goal is to transform this architecturally significant building into a hub for the community, creativity, and commerce. This is our love letter to Bakersfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in support? No others? Anyone in opposition? So at this time, seeing none, the consent calendar hearing 8B is now closed. And is there somebody who would like to make a motion?
I just have a
Councilmember
question, Mayor.
Gray.
Thank you. I appreciate those that will come into our community and try to restore and build back what I remember the Woolworths building as a little girl, and Brock's right across the street from it. But my question to you is, are you going to put the lunch counter back?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Congratulations, too.
Thank you, Councilmember Gray. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate your investment in downtown and your vision. Historical building, very exciting. So I will make the motion to approve the grant funds.
You have a motion? Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Gonzalez abstaining and Councilmember Arias absent.
Thank you. Next item, please.
New business item 12A, approval of the council committee calendar for January through December 2024.
Thank you. Mr. Clegg?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, we wanted to adopt a comprehensive plan, calendar for committees. In years past, those committee calendars have been adopted in each committee. We thought it would be helpful for the public to see them all in one place. It's reflective of the schedule that we've been following over this past year, and in consultation with the committee chairs. And so a fairly routine item just to set those dates as regular meeting times.
Thank you.
Move adoption of the item.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Arias absent.
Thank you. And next item, please.
Council and Mayor statements.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Colleagues, last night at the MLK Community Center, the city hosted its very first Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Prosperity Neighborhood Summit. I was so impressed with the turnout, with over 150 community residents participating in a good 2-hour conversation about the future of the MLK neighborhood. I was also impressed by the content and the quality of conversation and the ideas that were lifted up throughout the evening. But finally, I want to share that I was very taken aback and in much appreciation for the level of participation from many of our city hall leaders and our department heads. Christian Clegg, our city manager, was in attendance and joined me in moderating the evening. Jason Cater from Economic Community Development Department, along with Zachariah Garcia, did a tremendous job organizing the event. We had Jennifer Byers, the interim director of ECD, Rick Anthony, Recreation and Parks, Greg Strakalus from Public Works, Chris Boyle, Development Services, Chief Frando with the Fire Department, Gary Hallen, the Assistant City Manager. We had so many folks who were there and engaging with residents for a good 2-hour conversation, and it was very productive. And so many residents from the Southeast came up to me and texted me last night and today saying how good they felt about that convening and how optimistic they are about the future and very hopeful. And I just want to thank staff for making the effort and taking the time to be there with our community that evening. It is so impactful and so important that we engage at that level. And I couldn't be prouder of our city and City Hall for making that time investment for the MLK neighborhood. So thank you so much. I also have an item, I'd like to make a referral to the Planning and Development Committee. We've had a number of folks who have raised concerns related to the permitting process in the city. And I'd like the Planning and Development Committee to explore the development of a resolution that will outline certain timelines, certain expectations that the council will have as it relates to the permitting process. For example, a grading permit we may expect a grading permit to be turned around within 24 hours. Tenant improvements for buildings after that were built after 1996, for them to receive permits after 48 hours. There are other examples of cities and states that have very specific timetables for certain permits. For example, when anyone submits an application for anything, whether it be zoning review, building permit, variance, subdivision request, that the city has 15 days to decide whether that application is complete and deliver a response to the applicant. I'd like the Planning and Development Committee to develop a resolution and to bring it back to the full council for our consideration, working with staff. Thank you all, and good night.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Congressman Bill Thomas was here tonight, and we, in 2 weeks, will celebrate the ribbon cutting for the Centennial Corridor, and as been stated, the largest infrastructure project in Bakersfield ever. But the project won't really be finished. We've got what they call the 7th and 8th movements, the eastbound 58 to northbound 99, and the south 99 to west 58. Those movements won't be there, so people will have to go to Rosedale Highway. Through KernCog and the CTC, we've gotten the money, and it's ready for construction for the 7th movement. I want the city to move on that. My understanding is, I know TRIP is winding down and Public Works is having problems keeping things moving, but it's very important for the community as that opens up. They expect it to all be there. It won't all be there. And we've got the money. We need to put it out to bid. We need to get it under construction. In the 8th movement, we've got like $10 million to start the design and right away, and that also needs to start as soon as possible. So I'd like to make the referral that staff come back to council and tell us what the timelines are on those projects. That's number one. Number two is we have been speaking a lot about traffic fatalities in Bakersfield, and there is some good news in the 2023 numbers. The total numbers of, let me get my right one here, fatalities has reduced from 66 to 51. The pedestrian fatalities has went down from 34 to 17. Vehicle only fatalities has stayed the same or actually went up from 30 to 31. But I hope it's not a blip. I hope it's a trend, but I think that it shows that the efforts that we've been making in our road designs and changing, and the conversations that we've been having, and the media coverage of the fact that people need to pay attention more as they drive, I'm hoping is helping. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor, and colleagues, forgive me, but I failed to state during the consent calendar that I, Councilmember Andre Gonzalez, did abstain from the following agenda items due to the following conflict. I have abstained for the reason that the applicant contractor was actually a source of a campaign contribution. Thank you.
Thank you. And City Clerk, I'm not showing any other speakers. Should I be seeing anything else? Thank you. Colleagues, I had the pleasure of representing us at the U.S. Conference of Mayors in D.C. all last week, and I'm just so grateful for our new federal lobbyists and the support of staff. Anthony Valdez, who's not here today, but we were able to get in and see very high-level officials to talk about getting infrastructure money here, including water and support for roads, removing barriers for building housing, removing barriers for developers to accelerate the building of housing. And then we also had robust discussions about fentanyl, both preventing the supply and the demand, and many other very, very productive meetings. And I'm just really grateful the support that we had from our new federal lobbyists. We're really able to see very high-level people. So I think you'll be getting a report fairly soon. We've asked them for that you'll be able to see. Mr. Clegg will send it to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And if I just may, to take the opportunity to add a couple of notes, because I was, just very impressed with the outcomes of this trip. I've done federal advocacy before, and both our lobbyists, but also Mayor Go and making herself accessible and part of the Big City Mayors and U.S. Conference of Mayors and Anthony's efforts, we got into so many doors in 1 week. We went almost light years forward in a short time frame in our federal advocacy, and I think it will pay very big dividends. And when we pursue new programs like state lobbyists or federal lobbyists, state program, federal program, it's always in anticipation and with goals. But we surpassed our goals, and so kudos to Mayor Go as well for representing us very well in Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Mr. Clegg. I actually was invited by Secretary Blinken to be one of 5 mayors to meet on fentanyl. Unfortunately, he got called away just minutes before our meeting, but we did get to speak with staff on that and assistant secretaries. So hopefully that issue that is huge here, I really didn't realize the scope of it, but even compared to Fresno, so Fresno for its population has 13.22 deaths per 100,000, and we have, from fentanyl-related issues, I think it was 34.33, so per 100,000, just showing how we really have to tackle this issue. And we spoke, some of you might have read of a case of conviction where drugs travel from here to Syracuse. It was 65,000 pills, I think, but coming through here. So we've got to make our voice heard and get that federal help and all work together. It's not going to be an easy solve, but we're all working together on that. So thank you, and I don't see any other requests to speak. So we stand adjourned at 7:39. It's just horrible that